All right, everybody. Uh, Want to begin with noting heavy, uh, obviously the heavy matters that we are currently aware of dealing with uh, the in this process of this long drawn out uh, struggle with the hateful, bloodthirsty enemies of the innocent and of the good. It's not to give them the credence of a struggle in an effort of kind of two warring factions is to be entirely disingenuous and dishonest. In this case, as we saw with the Bibas family, we are talking about those that these babies came into their custody alive and were definitely no threat whatsoever. There was no reason other than pure barbarism, pure utter barbarism, that a mother and her two innocent babies were murdered while in the custody under the control of these terrorists. And that should be the thing that is screamed from the rooftops, that no matter what you want to say in terms of any justification of a battle of etc., this is the hallmark of the face, the true face, the proof in the face of who Israel is up against. And then also, I believe the inhumane parade in the lead up to the transfer of the remains of these poor innocent souls is also an indication. And again, it's unfortunately not surprising, but still shocking that any people who consider themselves in any way uh, um, warriors on behalf of humanity and protesters, et cetera, can look at that and remain indifferent. Speaks to utter hypocrisy. Why there isn't worldwide condemnation is again just reminds us just reminds us that that the world can be in completely on the wrong side of its moral compass, and this is this for us. Any voice that remains silent today and remained silent yesterday is a voice that has zero legitimacy. And I want to make that point very clear. If you were not outraged and in an uproar and condemnation, if your voice remained silent yesterday and today, your voice has zero legitimacy tomorrow. And that's really it. That's what has to be said on this on that aspect of it. We also wish, on behalf of Yardain Bibas and the greater Jewish family around the world, that includes all of us, that we have the strength to pull through, even as we are dealt blow after blow in these things, and the conviction to win, but never to become our enemy, to never descend into this kind of hate that can result in such a thing. Um,
Amen.
and honestly, it's not even possible. It's not even something we really have to wish for ourselves, because this level of barbarism is not human. It's not human, and it's not something that we really have to even be concerned about. On a different note, today is a very special yard site. It's the yard site of the Rebbe's wife, Rebbetzin Chaim Mushka, Chaf Bei Shvat, the Rebbetzin. She passed away in 1988 on the 22nd of Shvat. It's what is remarkable about this, about the figure and who she was, this personality that was the Rebbe's wife, Rebbetzin Chaim Mushka, was the daughter of a Rebbe and the wife of a Rebbe. She lived this in a way that very few people ever had. She is surrounded by the holiness of a Rebbe, cultivated, truly, truly immersed in this, and she herself rose to be the partner of a Rebbe, which really speaks volumes of who this woman was. Those that knew her would attest to her brilliance, her insightfulness. We'll share a few stories. Her unbelievable heart, and everybody knew of her modesty, both of in a material way, her material modesty, as well as her philosophical modesty. And the way that everybody knew this was because basically nobody really knew her, which was remarkable. This was the wife of the Rebbe, whose every moment almost was known to the Hasidim, who zealously would follow every glimpse that they could. And had the Rebbetzin had the interest in playing a very prominent role, there's no doubt that it would have been embraced and lauded and appreciated. But she was a model of one who lived her life with a sense of a tremendous modesty. Never needed to be in the front row. Never to need to be on the front page. But to hear the Rebbe talk about the support that the Rebbe could not be the Rebbe if it was not for his Rebbetzin speaks again is a tremendous lesson in having an impact without having to be on the front page. I'll share a few stories, each one highlighting another quality about her. The first story is again how unbelievably modest she was. That when the Rebbe came out with the various campaigns, specific mitzvahs that Chabad should take to the streets with and really encourage people to undertake. One of them was the mitzvah of Neshek, Nero Shabbat Kodesh. Right, weaponry. Right,
Good.
And spiritual warfare, right? Filling warfare against darkness to fill the world with light. Neshek in Hebrew means weaponry. And this is spiritual weaponry in the war of light versus darkness. Then the Shabbat candlesticks lit by Jewish women and girls every Friday night and on the holidays is the most potent of weapons of light versus darkness. But so these yeshiva bachers are on the streets of Brooklyn, and a middle-aged woman with a Jewish face is walking by, and they immediately jump and say, "Excuse me, do you light Shabbos candles?" And one of them starts launching into the whole pitch, the whole spiel about how important Shabbos candles are and is lighting them. And the other one then takes a second look and realizes that they had just accosted the Rebbetzin.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he's trying to kick his fellow over there. It's like hey, and this one is like he will not be denied. He's into it, and he's going and he does the whole spiel, and the after he's finished, the Rebbetzin has a beautiful smile on her face, and she says, "I do light Shabbos candles, but I'll be sure to let my husband know. He will be very proud." And the other one, she turns away. The other one says, "It's." So the fact that she would walk the streets and obviously anybody who that the face was not immediately recognizable is because that's the Rebbetzin kept that kind of low profile. To speak to her unbelievable heart, the Rebbetzin would oftentimes there were times that the Rebbetzin herself would drive. She would pick up her husband, the Rebbe, from time to time, and there are times that she would have one of her basically the her attendant, his name was Chesed Halberstam, be the one to drive around, especially in her later years. And Chesed is also, it's an acronym. Chesed obviously means kindness, but it was his name was Hanania Sinai David, and so it's beautifully. And I'm sure his parents did that on purpose so that it spells out Chesed. But the bottom line is he was known as Chesed. So Chesed Haber would drive the Rebbetzin, and she had her routes, she had her places. She would do shopping. She would insist oftentimes on doing her own shopping and things of that nature. She actually spent a lot of time at the Brooklyn Library. She was an avid sponge of information and learning. Um, and the one of these trips where she was going, it was Chesed's general attitude that he would take her on different routes, same place, same origin and destination, but to change the scenery, just as a matter of respect, to show the Rebbetzin respect, he would change the scene, he would change the route. So they were driving down a street they really never usually drove down. This is the backwaters of Brooklyn, if you can call any part of Brooklyn the backwaters of Brooklyn, but down a certain road. Uh, and all of a sudden, there's a backup on this street. So a whole bunch of cars, and they're stuck behind these cars. It wasn't an accident, but there was something going on. And they heard a little tumult, and the Rebbetzin tells Hasid, please get out of the car and go see what's going on. And he comes back and he says, "Well, what's happening is the little traffic is snarled because there is a woman and her family and her kids that are being evicted from their apartment right now, and so she's, and kind of in a tizzy, and these these burly men are schlepping out all her furniture and dumping it onto the street." Um, uh, And so, it's creating, but they're creating a workaround, and we'll slowly get going. And this wasn't a Jewish part of of the neighborhood, and this wasn't a Jewish woman and a Jewish family. The Rebbitzin says, Chesed, if you don't mind, or Rabbi Halberstam, whatever she used to call him, go find out how much she owes the landlord. It comes back, it says the amount, and it was not an insignificant figure. Go find out if the amount would be paid in full. Would they allow her to return to the apartment? Comes back and says, yes. He says that, in fact, if it would be paid in full, the workers who took the stuff out will move it all back in. So the Rebbitzin immediately writes the check for the full amount of what it would be, and tells Chesed, don't let this woman and family know who did this. Just quietly settle it with the landlord and let them believe that the landlord had a change of heart or whatever it is. But let's do this. Chesed goes and he brings the check. He whispers it to whatever it is, and gets back in the car, and they start going on their way. And the Rebbitzin says, now I understand why we went this way. Why was it that today divine providence had us coming this way? Um, and the story would have disappeared. Nobody would know, except that Chesed wasn't going to let such a story disappear. He felt it was necessary for people to understand who the Rebbitzin is. And then lastly, a story, just again, she was brilliant. I've pointed out often that there was this story. We've talked about that day on the calendar when to a certain degree, was being called into question at court what a Rebbe is and what the status of a Rebbe is, in the sense that the library, which was purchased by the personal funds of each one of the Rebbes in the dynastic line, from the Alter Rebbe all the way down, resulted in the largest private collection of Sepharim, of Jewish books in the world. And most of them made it, I would say about half of them made it out of Russia. The other half is still being held by the communist government. But even that half is still considered of the largest private collections of Svarim, and in it are some unbelievable original works as manuscripts, including the Baal Shem Tov's Siddur. And what happened was the Rebbe's elder brother-in-law married the elder sister to Rebbe Tzimcha Mushka, the eldest daughter of the previous Rebbe, um, uh, was obviously not did not succeed his father-in-law as the Rebbe. Rather, the Rebbe did. Um, they had a son, one son, whose name was Shalom Ber, but he became non-religious and he called himself Barry. And Barry decided that this library is his by inheritance rights. He is the grandson of the eldest grandson, the only grandson of the previous Rebbe, the last undisputed owner of this library. And he went into personally, he by subterfuge, he made it into this library and he started getting books from the library and selling them. So this matter came to light, and the Rebbe took this matter to court, or this matter was taken. Maybe he took for the Rebbe to court. The point is rather that this matter was brought to court. The Rebbe's claim is that the entire library belongs in the court of the Lubavitcher Hasidim and under the administration of the Rebbe. The argument against is that no, it's a private library purchased with the private funds of the Schneerson dynasty. And yes, you as as one of the son-in-laws have a stake, but you don't have the full ownership or the full custodianship because it does not belong to the Hasidim. It belongs to the brotherhood, the Hasidic brotherhood. It belongs to the individual family, to the personal, private family. And so this matter raged in court for nearly a year and had a profound effect on the Rebbe, a profound effect on the Rebbe. Ultimately, the Rebbitzin gave this deposition, and there's actually a video of this deposition, testimony uh, about what her position as the daughter of the previous Rebbe, and so the daughter of the last undisputed owner, also the daughter of a Rebbe and the wife of a Rebbe, what her position on this whole thing is. And in the end, the thrust of her testimony was as follows: yes, the library belongs to the Rebbe privately, to the Schneerson family privately, purchased with private funds. It's a private possession of the Rebbe. Of her father, of Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, seemingly an argument against the Rebbe's claim that it belongs to the Hasidic Brotherhood, uh, and therefore under his custodianship, and seemingly to back the claim of her nephew. But that's where the Rebbitzin said something profound. She says, yes, the library was purchased with private funds by each of the Rebbes, passed down and grown by the next Rebbe down with his private funds. So the library belongs to the Rebbe. But the Rebbe and all his possessions belong to the Hasidim. As a Rebbe, to be a Rebbe means to belong to the Hasidim. And the secular judge, who I actually met in person many, many, many years later, when I was a yeshiva bacher in France, said that testimony is what carried the day. And that this was passed down as this was bequeathed not from a member of the Schneerson family, but of the Rebbes, from one Rebbe to another, one who succeeds the Rebbe in that responsibility, in that role of vis-a-vis the Hasidic Brotherhood, they're the ones who take the possession. So this is the Rebbetzin. This is brilliance.
Where was she
And
born?
what?
Where was she born?
She was born in the city of Lubavitch.
Ah, okay.
No, I'm sorry. Rebbetzin was born in Babinovich. Why? In a city in Babinovich or Babinovich. But she was born into the household of the previous Rebbe when the previous Rebbe was already Rebbe. No, I take that back. Previous Rebbe was not necessarily yet Rebbe necessarily. Was probably under the tenure of the Rebbe Rashab of the fifth Chabad Rebbe. Her father was being groomed to be the Rebbe. Either way, then permit me one last story is that just to show there's brilliance and wisdom, which is what she exhibited with that story, but then there's also a insightfulness and sharpness of mind that coupled with caring that comes out in this story that while the Rebbetzin kept a private life, there was those that would come by to share tea. She was never really left alone. Just quieter families of Hasidim, etc., would come and have tea to talk and to engage with the Rebbetzin in many different capacities. And one of these was families that were basically related. They were part of the constellation of the kind of the greater Schneerson family, the Gerari family. And remember, the family was coming to share the tidings that that her daughter had become engaged, Mazel Tov, and came with the Kala. For neither of them was the first time with the Rebbetzin, but it was always a very special occasion to share tea with the Rebbetzin and to talk. It was always a very warm conversation. So they're sitting, the mother and the daughter, with the Rebbetzin, and they're sharing their tidings and their moments, etc. And and the preparations, the Rebbetzin is inquiring about the preparations for the wedding, and she's talking about it all. And then the Rebbetzin says, "May I ask a favor?" In kind of the greater Schneerson family, there is a tradition to not go with a brilliant white wedding gown, but to have it a little bit off, either off white or a little a pinkish tinge, a bluish tinge, a greenish tinge. The Rebbetzin actually wore, over the course of her wedding, three different gowns at different points because the wedding, and one was a light pink, one was a light blue, and one was a lightish green. And so it says this is the minhag of our family to not wear brilliant whites. And that's because that's something that was instituted actually from outside the Jewish religion, and so we're careful to not do this. Not something that is insisted upon for those not of the Schneerson family, but in the Schneerson family, so is the tradition. Now, this uh, young Hala starts to become a little emotional about this request. And the Rebbetzin noticed it, and the Rebbetzin turned to her and says, why are you so emotional?" She said, "Because ich will nicht sein anders. Just I don't want to be different. This, just like the rest of her classmates and friends, getting married, the white gown, she's so it was so the Rebbetzin reaches over and pats her on the hand and says, "Danke nicht. Sie ist modern zu sein anders." Says, "Don't worry, it's modern to be different. It's it's the in thing to be just a little bit unique." That kind of that awareness, that sensitivity, whatever it is, that she actually did end up getting a off-white gown and was quite proud. Actually, it became a thing. Actually, once she's she's because it's an acknowledgement of the. So, this is the Rebbitzin. Today's her yard site. Um, uh, in commemoration of the yard site, utter havoc, and chaos is ensuing in every Chabad household around the world because all the Rebbitzins are going to New York for the conference
Right, right,
and
right. I heard about this. Yeah.
leaving the husbands alone with the whole with all the kids. So this is the yearly week of let's call it an international humbling where the guys realize how incapable they are without the Rebbitzins. But Nechami among all the rest of her sisterhood is going to be in New York, and Zlata is joining her um, to be part of this, and so this is a very special thing. So, without further ado, after that long introduction and a point that I think these are all wonderful things that definitely need to be mentioned because today is the day Chaf Shvat. So the learning that we are doing should be first in memory of the Bibas family and all the other ones who have lost their lives, as well as in the memory of and commemoration of the Rebbitzin, the mother of our generation. And perhaps it is apropos that Hashem is saying that in this day that these souls will have been returned and brought back into the bosom of their community. That the matriarch of our generation this is her day. So on that note, let's turn to this week's Torah parsha. Parshat Mishpatim. Eila hamishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. This parsha is the parsha in the Torah with the most Rashi commentary, period. Rashi is known for his brevity, for being so concise. I mentioned that Rashi applies to himself in his commentary on the Torah 318 rules to his commentary. When he comments on something, the order of how he comments, the amount of words he uses when he cites proofs, when he does it, it is a remarkable. Rashi is this is an incredibly disciplined and truly a one of the greatest feats of human commentary in existence. And yet, over here, it seems that perhaps Rashi lost control of the tight leash of his brevity. Because when you look at this parsha, Rashi goes on and on and on. Unless you have a true appreciation of the material that Rashi is drawing from, and then you are actually blown away at Rashi's ability to take tractates of Talmud and consolidate it in a few lines of text. Because what he is doing is he is really, to a certain degree, summarizing at the source location where the verses are in the Torah, how we get to the laws that we have, the whole civil and social structure of laws that we have, with all the details of damages and loans and things like that make up the three largest tractates of the Talmud. Or let me rephrase that. The largest super tractate of the Talmud that was so large that it had to be divided into three tractates. They had to take one tractate of Talmud called Masechet Nezikin, the tractate of damages, and reduce it because it's so super large. It reduced it into three sections. They imaginatively named the sections the first section, the middle section, and the last section.
Gate.
Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Batra. That's literally what they mean. And just to give you a sense of how large that super tractate was before it was divided, section number 3 of it, Bava Batra, is still the largest tractate in the entire Talmud. And so Rashi manages to take a significant uh, amount of this super tractate, of all the pages and pages of elucidation from the quotes, how we get from that quote all the way to the practical law, and summarize it on location. This verse, what do we take? What is the practical takeout from this verse? Such and such and such and such. It's to read the Rashi on this parsha is to watch him basically summarize the super tractate of the entire Talmud. So it's a pretty remarkable masterwork. And why here? Why does the Torah at this point choose to go into the first parsha of what then becomes quite regular going forward from I would say every other parsha of Shemot from this point forward till Vayikra Bamidbar, which is basically law, 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 law. We get away from the storytelling that was basically everything up until this point, right? From Bereshit through Parshat Yitro, we are basically telling a story. And the laws or the lessons are interwoven in the general narrative of the story. Mishpatim, zero story, all law, all the way through.
It's all in the
And
Vav.
right, good, good. And then eventually, the next Torah portion, still laws. Next Torah portion, laws. The portion after that, we get a little bit back to the stories, then get back to the laws, and then really from Vayikra through all the way, it's mostly law with a little bit of story thrown in here and there. So this parsha really definitively shifts kind of the narrative vehicle of the Torah from story centric to law centric. And it's quite literally the name of the parsha, Mishpatim, laws, and a specific type of laws. Mishpatim are the civil, social, logical laws versus laws that are more kind of the testimonials to the relationship we have with God, and then the chukim, the laws that we do as matters of faith. We'll talk about those all in a moment, but it's something that's what we've spoken about. It's well-tread territory. But in this, this plays why here? Why here are we doing? Do we kind of shift the narrative? Why here immediately do we start um, uh, uh, shifting towards laws? It's not like the story is done. In fact, we are going to, when we get back to the storytelling, we're actually going to kind of reverse a little bit and kind of make up for kind of lost ground that we kind of the laws, for example, that we're going to talk about from here and into the next Torah portion and the portion after that are going to be about matters that hadn't even occurred yet chronologically. And yet we're jumping straight into the laws, and then we're going to reverse in time a couple Torah portions from now to get back to the storytelling. So we almost said, like right now, here we must stop the storytelling, and we must begin giving over laws to the point where we'll actually eventually we'll have to reverse to go back to the storytelling. We'll have to go back in time to go to the storytelling. And the reason for this is because what was the theme of last week's Torah portion?
Big ideas.
More than just the big ideas, the big moment.
Exactly.
Har Sinai,
Right. Mamad Har Sinai.
Ma'amad Har Sinai, exactly right. Ma'amad Har Sinai. And Mount Sinai, if there was ever a moment where we were sure that what we were doing was said and is God's word and will, it's Mount Sinai. When we all heard from God, at least the first two of the Ten Commandments. In fact, we heard all the Ten Commandments because it says that originally God, in one utterance, said all the Ten Commandments, then started to elucidate. And as he was saying, Commandments 1 and 2, our souls departed from our bodies. It was too much for us to handle, and God had to revive us. So the point where we came to Moshe and we said, we can't anymore. You take over. And so it actually happens. But also in the first two is covered the whole Torah. But more importantly, one can then turn around and say, fine, the Torah records in Parshat Yitro, the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments is the word of God. Everything else after that, maybe the word of Moshe, maybe recorded later by some scholars and rabbis. Who said, and unfortunately we say, oh, Ten Commandments, I'll never violate the Ten Commandments. But about this thing about loans and saying and oaths and this and lending laws, okay, so that's part of the rest of Torah, the rest of Torah. And as Paula pointed out, sorry, you don't get that pass because of the second to smallest letter in the whole Torah ruins any type of ability to just kind of get away with it. Sorry. Hashem dropped in one letter, and that was it, and sealed the deal. And what letter is that?
The Vav.
The letter Vav. The Parsha does not say Eila HaMishpatim, right? Jerry, you're going to give me the clauses, the legal clauses for these things. That sometimes when you have a statement and then you follow it with another statement, but that statement picks up not in continuation of the earlier statement, but as a new statement, that statement almost excludes, is an exclusionary statement of the first one. These are, which means those are not, right? This is, if I say, I'll use the same the same anecdote I used a few weeks ago about, hey, Yaakov, what's fresh? Fresh. Everything's fresh. Everything's fresh, right? And then I point to the things. Oh, that's fresh, right? What does that say about everything mentioned earlier? That rule doesn't apply. The statement fresh doesn't apply because it said that is fresh.
Yeah.
How do I change the statement from exclusionary to inclusionary?
The Vav.
With a vav, with an and. And these are fresh. Right? The word and creates the bond between this statement and the earlier statement. Ve'ela hamishpatim. And these are the statutes. And what? And to what? What's it connecting it back to? So Rashi, Ma elu misinai, af elu misinai. It's connecting it back to the Ten Commandments, giving everything that we are going to say here forward the same validity and strength as the Ten Commandments themselves. This is why it's important to note the Ten Commandments don't stand unique in that they are super mitzvahs. No such thing. We have a total of 613 mitzvahs, not 10 plus 603, 613, period. Finished. Done. 613. Which one of the mitzvahs are more important than the rest? None. 613.
Come in.
Obey your wife.
Having said that, there are circumstances and situations where certain mitzvot are to be kept and certain mitzvahs are meant to be violated for the sake of being able to keep more mitzvahs into the future. and certain mitzvahs take precedent. So there is a hierarchy, but it doesn't mean that any of them are a more important or more God's will. Just God's will for each one. It's not, for example, um, would we say that just because Kiddush is only recited once a week, while Shachris is recited every single day, that Shachris is more important than Kiddush? No, it just has different parameters. 613 equally valid and important mitzvahs. Different parameters apply to the observance of these mitzvahs. Some of them, even some of the most important mitzvahs, we can't do, right? Because there is no temple, etc. But that little vav so important in making and in stating this thing. Now the next is asher tasim lifnehem. This is a very interesting way. This is a command from God to Moshe. Who is talking to who? We used to have this was every single elementary school cheder, day school, Jewish day school, used to have this as part of the educational exercise they would do. Mi amar el mi. A quote from the Torah, and then you had to fill in who was saying this to who. Sometimes it's a quote of dialogue in the middle of one of the stories of the Torah. Ve'ela hamishpatim asher tasim lifneihem, and these are the statutes, commandments that you shall place before them. Mi amar mi, who is talking to who here? This is God talking to Moshe, right? About who? About the people, right? These are the commands. God says, hey, Moshe, these are the commands that you shall place before them, the Jewish people. Now, what does it mean, place before them? Write up another set of tablets and go, here, I have now put it before you. I walk to every single person's tent and go, boom. What does it mean? So obviously the understanding is rhetorically placed before them. But that's an interesting choice. Do we find anywhere else in the Torah that God says it as follows? Does he say, for example, every time he's about to introduce one of the mitzvahs that he says, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe, lasim lifnei b'nei Israel, to place before b'nei Israel. No, this is not a common rhetorical phrase. Rather, Hashem is saying something specific with this. Do you know what famous book in Judaism gets its name from this statement of Asher Tasim Lifnehem? What fundamental book of Judaism gets its title from this statement of Asher Tasim Lifnehem? And the answer is the Shulchan Aruch. Why? Because the Gemara translates or explicates on behalf of God. What is God telling Moshe? That Moshe, your job in giving the laws over to the people is not complete when you just say, here's the law, go do it. Rather, Asher Tasim, you have to lay it out before them.
Like a tablecloth.
With all the details and all the courses. Kishulchan Aruch Muchan L'Seudah. Like a set table prepared for the meal.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, this here is the mandate from God to anybody who wants to call himself among the scholar class of the Jewish people, that you are not allowed to be monks sitting in some monastery at the top of a hill or behind the thick walls of the Vatican. Do you realize that Yiddishkeit, Judaism, is the one religion that makes it an absolute foundational tenet that every single person that we can get our hands on within our faith should be educated in the study of our doctrine. Point to the other religion that does this. Every other religion has preachers that says, this is what you need to do. We don't want educated people. We want obedient people. Educated people are dangerous because they might actually, God forbid, develop a mind and an opinions of their own, which is very dangerous if your entire doctrine is based on human on a human made document. You don't want people taking too hard of a look at something made by another human being because you could start to poke holes in it. You can start finding how it is in fact fallible.
Oh, goodness.
So you don't want too many people taking too hard of a look. Rather, what you want is people taking very good notes as to what is demanded of them. Use your ears, not your eyes. Right? Listen closely, and I'm going to tell you and what to do, and do it, and don't question, and don't study, and don't look too much. Just do. Yiddishkeit says naaseh, but then vinishma. And the responsibility of those who have achieved scholarship in Torah is that to turn around and tasim lifnehem, from Moshe to any other great sage, scholar, rabbi, leader within the Jewish people, tasim lifnehem, lay it out, and before all of them. Ela Mishpatim. It doesn't say that you shall mitzavel lahem asher tetzavel lahem, that you shall command them. Or Ela Hamishpatim asher tedaber lahem.
Oh, but you don't know.
Ela Mishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. What else does it say? Put it in a way that you will put the ball in their court to pick it up. Put it before them.
The recipient's first
And
name.
then invite them to come and pick it up.
Who's the recipient?
Don't shove it down their throat. Rather, place it before them. Trust and in their souls and their desire to learn and to know and to connect.
Wow.
That they will come to it.
That's who it is.
And
Wow.
they give by that giving them ownership
Honor.
of what of their own connection to the Yiddishkeit. And also importantly, what that means is they may develop a different approach than you. Your student might have a whole different attitude than you. It's not yours, it's Hashem's. Put it before them and let them partake.
Huh.
So we were just talking about this yesterday, right? The famous Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish paradigm. Rabbi Yochanan teaches Reish Lakish, and Reish Lakish is constantly challenging him. And Rabbi Yochanan is not getting offended at all because he's not looking for a carbon copy of himself. His responsibility is to put it before Reish Lakish, and Reish Lakish is eating of it voraciously in a completely different way than Rabbi Yochanan approached it. And Rabbi Yochanan basked in the glory of that. And the glory of somebody else taking this and running with it. Taking their Torah, God's Torah, and running with it. Taking God's Torah, not Rabbi Yochanan's Torah, and making it their Torah. Is probably the best way to say it. To each one of us, that's our responsibility. And that is, think about it, that is so key. It is the foundation of our entire heritage. Shema Yisrael v'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, right? V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha v'chol v'hayu advarim ha'ela, right? Asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al avecha. What's the very next words?
Vishinantam levanecha.
Vishinamtam levanecha. Turn around and teach it.
But you have to have it first.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
But think about any other heritage, culture, anything from religion to academia, and there is a general sense of zealously guarding be it in the ivory tower or the Vatican Tower, and deliberately keeping people away, unless you are part of that elite group that has been approved to approach. This is information forever has been zealously guarded. Because ultimately, all peoples come to realize an essential truth that human beings' greatest power and greatest resource is information. And people with an interest of power in any way, be you again the professor, the academic, the Ivy League professor, be you a minister of a particular religion, you guard that power. You guard the information because with that you guard the power. And God says to Moshe, I'm giving you the Torah. What do you do with this Torah? Immediately put it before them. Right after I gave it to you, I'm giving you the command to give it to everybody. Yes, Paul.
But don't we have to remember that there are parameters that just having what's been put before you, you can't do anything about it. There are parameters.
It's part of the Asher Tasim Lifnehem. What you have to put it all there before them. Trust them that if you put all the correct information, that they will cherish it and respect it as you do. It doesn't mean every single person is going to do it. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. But right, this is one of the whole debates about open source information, right? It'll be used and abused and maligned and mistreated and eventually adulterated. Judaism took a different approach. Not anybody can be a Kohen, right? Not anybody can be a king, but anybody could be a scholar. You just have to. That's the open side of Judaism. Which tribe do you need to belong to become the head of the Bet Din, the head of the Sanhedrin?
None.
You don't even need to originally be from any tribe whatsoever. Rabbi
Right.
Akiva was the son of a convert.
Right.
Devorah was a woman. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was 18 years old. So pretty egalitarian. Men, women, converts, children. Right? DEI. But the point of the matter is trust that if you put it before people properly, as you said, Paula, properly put it before them. That's the thing. As it says, what does it mean? Tasim lifneim k'shulchan aruch, with all the details. You can't hold back. You have to give them the rules. You have to give them the parameters. You have to give them the approach to learning, etc., etc. Stay with them. It doesn't mean drop it and then absolve yourself of any responsibility. The opposite. The opposite. You need to stay involved and engaged. Chinuch, what the word for education in Hebrew, lechanech, is a word that, like a lot of things in Judaism, has its root in agriculture, right? Its root in agriculture, right?
Nicely said.
Right.
It's good. It's good.
Lechanech is to make sure that something is growing straight. If that it is the care that you provide to something to make sure that it is growing healthily and robust and straight. That's where the word, that's in agriculture, that's the term. In education, it's the same. But trust that if you do your part right, then your students will do their part right. You can trust them. And this experiment was not such an experiment, has been going for 3,000 years now. And yes, of course, there has been throughout history many, 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 many that have, with for cynical and ulterior purposes, or sometimes just simple uh, foolishness and and ignorance, have deviated and had tried to take the Torah and many people off in the wrong direction to various degrees of success, from the Karaites to the Sadducees to the Enlightenment movement to, I'm going to say it, and it's going to be a little controversial, but I feel strongly about it. The Tikkun Olam movement.
It's not controversial in this house,
It's this.
meaning this big house.
Right, right. But for those
No more.
watching, for anybody who's going to watch this video on YouTube or wherever it is, and want to put something in the comments, I'm happy that if you would reach out and we can have a conversation about it. The point of the matter is, this is the legacy right after the Torah has been freshly introduced to the world at Mount Sinai. It was given to Moshe, and God says, Moshe, this Torah is not given to you for you. And it's not under your jurisdiction. It's under your custodianship, but it's under the people's jurisdiction. Your responsibility is to give it to Klal Yisrael, to teach Klal Yisrael. And in fact, as we said, the Torah is not in chronological order. Last week's Torah portion, before we even got to the Ten Commandments, is already talking about the aftermath of the Ten Commandments, where the people were lining up to come to Moshe for understanding and explication. They lined up for them all day and night. And that's when Yitro stepped in, right? Like any good father-in-law, starts minding his son-in-law's business and says, here's a better way to do what you're doing here. And he says, immediately train and prepare Sarei Alafim, Sarei Meot, Sarei Chamishim, Sarei Asarot, right? Those that will teach to the tens, those that will teach to the hundreds, those that will teach to the thousands. Create a hierarchy of teaching and ministering, because ultimately the Torah is meant to not be just in your hands. And so straight from the get-go, the Torah's legacy is Tasim Lifneha. Judaism's ultimate ideal is that every one of us be a scholar. And importantly, not just be a scholar, but a doer. Everyone is Adin Steinsaltz had a line, his slogan, as it were, which was very good. It's on the cards of his emissaries that he would send to, and it said, "Let my people know. Let my people know." And that is the way that Yiddishkeit has stood out from pretty much any type of doctrine over the course of the ages. The ultimate goal of Torah is to let my people of the Torah scholar is to let my people know, is to share it as wide and as broad and as far as it possibly can, and take responsibility of their students and what they are learning, to make sure that they are being mechanechotam, they are teaching them properly and correctly, and then to trust that the students will take it and run with it and make it their own, and in turn become teachers to those who would take from them. That is the legacy of the Torah. All right, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Rabbi. Happy birthday.
Happy
Rabbi,
birthday.
Rabbi, is it your Hebrew birthday?
No, it's my Gregorian. Gregor decided that today is my birthday.
It's my daughter's Hebrew birthday today.
Oh, there you go. Now
Yes,
it's interesting.
It's the yard side of the Rebbitzin. That's to say that.
That's very special.
Look at what a good day it is, because listen, you're with very good company there. What you told us to begin with. So,
Rabbi, I
Yes.
haven't gotten the book yet, if you want to check on it.
Okay. I'm assuming you mean the JLI.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I'll make a point of it right after this class.
Okay, no rush.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, a rush, a rush, a rush.
Yes, I
A
have
good
a lot
job.
of
Marisha, rush,
catching
rush,
up to
rush.
do.
Right. All right. We'll get on it. We'll get on it.
Thank
All right,
you,
everybody.
Rabbi.
Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
day.
Yeah.
Enjoy your
Have
day.
have a
Thank
You're
good
you,
going to be
Shabbat
left
weekend.
alone without Nakami because
Hasn't left just yet. She's about to leave. So find out. I'm still looking. As you see, my shirts are still relatively finely pressed, and my beard is not disheveled. We'll see. We'll see what I look like on the other end of the weekend.
okay. The kids will be
All right.
great. You
Yeah,
have good
they will
Thank
be.
you.
They
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
You don't
Shabbat
have any
shalom.
problems.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. All
Thank
right.
you.
All the
Bye.
best.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.